Chapter 801. The moment he appeared, I lost GDK 801. The moment he appeared, I lost Han Shu's victory was out of most people's expectations. He was greeted with gazes of respect after he returned to the center of the mountain range. The three major patriarchs, 5 divine guard chiefs, and other influential characters of the city had their gazes gathered on Han Shuo. Han Shuo had expected this reaction from them. He believed that it won't be long before the news of his triumphant against Ralph and his second corps spreads throughout the City of Shadows. By then, Han Shuo wouldn't have to worry about the recruitment issue. People would beg to be a divine guard of the House of Han and the 5th Corps. Brian, did you actually just defeated Ralph? Carmelita was still in disbelief even till now. Ralph, the chief of the 2nd Corps, had just lost everything he could be proud of to Han Shuo, who had made an official debut only recently. This was a significant change to the general situation in the City of Shadows, which had not occurred for many years. After that day, Ralph no longer had anything that could back his arrogance. The City of Shadows would no longer be a place that Ralph could throw his weight about because he had just lost all his pride to Han Shuo. Han Shuo calmly smiled, pointed at the sand table, and responded, "Didn't you see it?" Carmelita stared blankly for a second before she turned annoyed and said, "See what? We didn't see one bit of the process. Why did you produce that mist and conceal the whole fight? Process isn't the important part. What matters is the results," said Han Shuo as he wore the most punchable, mischievous smile. "In short, I have won the battle. That is all that matters. Indeed, it's not the process that counts but the outcome. Every one of us here has witnessed Brian pressing his sword on Ralph's throat. All of us here are eyewitnesses. Brian has won and Ralph has lost. It's that simple," remarked Casper before he looked at Wallace smilingly. For all these while, the House of Saint had control over the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Corps. No matter in team combat strength or in the capabilities of the chiefs, the House of Saint had overshadowed those of the other 3 major family clans. In all of the competitions, the top 3 corps and chiefs would always be those from the House of Saint. Their supremacy had never been challenged. That was until this day when Brian shook up everything. Wallace nodded indifferently and asked in a deep voice, "All right, Brian is victorious in this match. Any objections?" Who would have any objection? The fact was plain for all to see. Casper and the other 2 major patriarchs exchanged meaningful glances with each other. Although they were rivals, the 3 patriarchs shared a mutual understanding. They knew exactly what each other were thinking right then. Before the departure of the House of Lavers, there were 5 major family clans in the City of Shadows. Although they were called the 5 major family clans, it was common knowledge that the House of Saint was much more powerful and had always kept the other 4 family clans contained. The House of Saint had the City of Shadows firmly in its grasp, and no one could come close to loosening its grip. But were the other family clans satisfied with what they have? The answer was obvious: absolutely not. No matter if it was the House of Kinson, House of Kisa, House of Buller, or even the lesser family clans, all of them yearned for the position of the city lord. The City of Shadows had limited territory and resources, which had mostly been split among big and small family clans. A new family clan needed territory and all kinds of resources to grow. Without any unexplored land and unexploited resources, this new family clan must obtain what they needed from another family clan in order to fuel their growth. The rise of a major family clan often means the downfall of another, a fact that had not changed since times immemorial. The abrupt rise of the House of Han was a great example. How was it that the House of Han could grow so rapidly and become one of the most influential powers in the city? It was because they had taken over the territory of the House of Lavers and their tremendous manor. When the House of Saint first started out, similar to the houses of Kinson, Buller, and Kisa, they were all just small family clans in the City of Shadows. Eons ago, the former ruler of the City of Shadows, the House of Tianluo, suffered disastrous losses in a war against the Life and Light Dominions. The weakened House of Tianluo was annihilated by the joint forces of the Saint, Kinson, Buller, and Kisa families. That was how they came to possess what they had this day. And if there ever came a day that the House of Saint declined, then the current House of Kinson, Buller, and Kisa could fill their place and become the new ruler of the City of Shadows. They could possess what the House of Saint had, or even more. Who could resist this temptation? The reason that the Kinson, Buller, and Kisa families never dared rebel was that the Saint family had managed to firmly inhibit them in every aspect. They were also intimidated by Wallace's terrifying strength. But on that day, when Han Shuo managed to defeat Ralph with ease, the colossal House of Saint, which had been untouchable in the City of Shadows, seemed to have quivered very lightly. But even the slightest quiver was more than enough to reignite their greed. The three major patriarchs understood each other even though they did not speak a word. Wallace was just too strong. The three patriarchs understood that if they were to go on an all-out fight with the House of Saint, they must have someone on their side who could fight Wallace. The three patriarchs of mid-stage high gods' strengths knew that they had around the same strength as Ralph. They were certain that even if they could defeat Ralph in a battle, it would never be as effortless as Han Shu had done. Can Brian defeat Wallace? The three major patriarchs simultaneously asked themselves the same question. Their heads, which were lowered in contemplation, were raised, and their gazes yet again gathered on Han Shuo. The three astute and circumspect foxes thought, I shall wait and observe. If he could also defeat Ayabashi just as effortlessly, then it can be certain that he has the strength to fight Wallace. Next battle, Erebus versus Camilla, announced Wallace. Here I come. Erebus, who was chatting happily with Han Shuo, left impatiently after he heard the call-out from Wallace. Based on Han Shuo's understanding of Erebus, Han Shuo reckoned that it wouldn't be difficult for Erebus to win this battle. And the results were as Han Shuo had expected. After half a day's time, Erebus successfully defeated Camilla. Next in line was Baduk and Rugersi. The results of this match were rather unexpected. Baduk, who was the last place in the ranking, with great difficulty, managed to defeat Rugersi, who had previously defeated him. With that, the ranking of Divine Guard chiefs changed slightly. The victors continued to fight for higher ranking, while the defeated strived to stay as high up as they could. Han Shuo, Erebus, Baduk, and Ayabashi went for another round of lot drawing. Baduk, if you got the lot against Brian, just surrender, the Buller family patriarch, Laurel, advised Baduk softly before he would draw lots. Baduk forced a smile and replied, Lord Patriarch, can't you have a little more confidence in me? Laurel smiled and replied, Well, Baduk, do you have confidence in defeating Brian? Baduk was a member of the House of Buller. As the patriarch of the Buller family, Laurel knew Baduk's strength well. He did not think that Baduk could come close to defeating Han Shuo. Nope, not the slightest shred of confidence, said Baduk as he shook his head. But I have not seen how Brian attacked just then. Even if I were to be defeated, I should at least try to gauge his true strength, right? Laurel stared blankly for a bit and thought for a moment. He nodded smilingly as he replied, You're right, might as well make use of the defeat. A little bit of fighting wouldn't hurt. The results of the lot drawing were obtained in no time. Erebus was matched against Ayabashi and Baduk matched against Han Shuo. I surrender, Erebus declared loudly and shamelessly before Wallace could announce anything. Under the astonished gazes of the crowd, Erebus shrugged and explained, I have fought Ayabashi many times in private, and I know for a fact that I am no match against her. I don't want to waste everyone's time. The crowd unknowingly smirked after hearing Erebus' words. It was known to everyone that Erebus had been pursuing Ayabashi and that he was no match against Ayabashi in strength. However, the crowd couldn't help but suspect that perhaps something else was going on, given how straightforward Erebus was in giving up. They couldn't help but look at Erebus and Ayabashi suspiciously. Who asked you to surrender? Why can't you fight? Scolded Ayabashi in a fierce scowl. She didn't expect that Erebus would actually straightforwardly give up as he said he will. He showed not the slightest courageous spirit. We all know that I cannot defeat you. There's no point in wasting everybody's time, replied Erebus smilingly. All right, Erebus has voluntarily surrendered. Ayabashi will make it to the next round, announced Wallace. As Ayabashi and Erebus will not be fighting, Han Shuo and Baduk proceeded to the arena. Right when the battle between the two started, the mist yet again appeared out of nowhere, completely blocking the spectators' view of the entire fight. It tickled the annoyance of the crowd, who wished to have a clear view of Han Shuo's true strength. When the mist finally dissipated, the arena was again visible to the spectators, and Han Shuo was pointing his sword at an exhausted Baduk. It was similar to the fight between Han Shuo and Ralph, but the battle took an even shorter time. Unlike Ralph, Baddock did not even have the energy to get up. Baddock, whose head was spinning, was helped to his feet by Han Shuo. "Much apologies, Lord Baddock," said Han Shuo sincerely after giving Baddock a hand. He knew that those surrounding the sand table saw the scene of his victory. It is a competition. There is nothing to apologize for. Baddock, who knew that he will be defeated, couldn't pull a smile as though nothing had happened as Han Shuo could. He nodded indifferent at Han Shuo and left the arena in a gloomy face. As Han Shuo will fight Ayabashi next, he did not leave the arena. He sincerely apologized to the leaving Baddock a few more times and stayed in the arena, waiting for Ayabashi's arrival. As soon as Baddock returned from the arena, Laurel hastily went to him and asked in a low voice, "So, did you get anything?" It felt as though I was pulled into another dimension. I did not see Bran even once from start to finish. By the time he appeared, I was already defeated. "It's basically the same as what you would see through the sand table," said Baddock resentfully. He did not feel angry about the results. There was no shame in losing, but he couldn't accept not knowing how he was defeated. Baddock turned more sullen the more he thought about it. He remarked, "Had I known this earlier, I would have just surrendered. What's the point of wasting all the energy?" Laurel was astounded. The other two major patriarchs who had come to them at an unknown time also put on astounded faces. How powerful is this Brian? /I Chapter 802, Han Shuo v Ayabashi GDK 802. Han Shuo v Ayabashi, none of them were surprised that Han Shuo defeated Baddock. After all, Baddock's strength wasn't even on Ralph's level. It was reasonable that Baddock would lose. However, they could not believe Baddock when he said that he did not even saw Han Shuo attacking. It didn't sound logical. Under Laurel's suspicious gaze, Baddock said annoyingly, "I'm reporting the fact as it is. I did not see how he attacked at all." "Then how exactly were you defeated?" asked Laurel. "Right from the start of the battle, I feel as though I was trapped in a prison cell. A very corrosive energy and a frigid energy simultaneously attacked me. I had no choice but to deploy defensive barriers. When I have nearly exhausted my divine energy, I finally feel that I was no longer imprisoned. It was right then that Brian appeared and restrained me," explained Baddock in a depressed manner. Laurel was astonished. He exchanged glances with the other two major patriarchs listening to their conversation, and they turned silent. While the few were discussing, Ayabashi had arrived at the arena. Han Shuo, who was resting, suddenly opened his eyes and stood up. "Hello," greeted Han Shuo smilingly. He seemed less at ease than usual. Han Shuo had previously witnessed Ayabashi's strength just once. He also knew that in the City of Shadows, her strength was second only to Wallace. Although Han Shuo was confident in defeating Ayabashi, he had a very good friendship with her. It was because of this that Han Shuo did not know if he should attack Ayabashi with his full strength. Unlike Han Shuo, Ayabashi was untroubled. She walked towards Han Shuo with a big grin on her face. After giving Han Shuo a glance with her bright eyes, in her lovable voice, she said, "I have not made it out until this day. You have concealed your secret well. Turns out you are so powerful that you can defeat Ralph and Baddock without much effort. It appeared that I must go all out in this duel." "Mercy, big sister Ayabashi, please don't be too harsh to me," replied Han Shuo modestly. "Sorry, but I can't afford to do so, or I might end up losing very horribly. Hee, Brian, just use your full strength and show me your true power. Don't be a chicken like Erebus," said Ayabashi loudly. She suddenly started accelerating towards Han Shuo like a spirit. A violent gust abruptly appeared in the arena, kicking up sand and stones. Multiple strong and rapidly revolving winds converged around Ayabashi before wrapping her tightly in the center. The element of wind from far and near started wildly converging to the center of the superstorm and formed an impregnable barrier around her. Once a cultivator of the energy of wind learned to form a domain of divinity, they could direct the element of wind to wrap around themselves to form a shield. They could also use it to increase their movement speed. Ayabashi had just shown great mastery of her domain of divinity. While cramming the space around her with the element of wind, she formed a colossal tornado around herself. The apocalyptic tornado uprooted every towering tree that she flew past. An entire forest of massive trees became a part of the tornado. Nothing remained on the ground, save for the earth, and several tottering trees that had energy towers concealed within. The tornado whistled ever louder and grew ever more powerful. After sucking in countless trees, stones, sand, and anything on the ground, the tornado turned grayish and seemed to have strengthened by an order of magnitude. The gargantuan whirling wrecker laid waste to everything in its path as it moved towards Hanshuo. With the presence of such a terrifying and devastating megatornado, Hanshuo did not need deploying the banner of hallucination in this battle. The massive tornado had kicked up more than enough sand and dust around the arena. Those gathered around the sand table could not see through the turbulent atmosphere filled with dust. Hanshuo remained motionless and stood as still as a mountain. He was waiting for Ayabashi to accumulate her wind energy to the peak before he would attack so that she will be more accepting of her defeat. When the tornado had stored up energy to its peak and started engulfing him, Hanshuo finally made a move. Cauldron Spirit's energy gushed into his body. In an instant, a tremendous amount of energy filled every one of his organs and bones. Hanshuo felt not just immense pain, but also immense power. Instead of taking out the 17 flying swords, Hanshuo used the Demon Slayer Edge. It shot out from his body like a dark thunderbolt. The bright dark Demon Slayer Edge glowed with bewitching red radiance as demonic yuan poured into it. Shafts of red radiance started unfolding as though the blooming of a flower. The blood-red radiance started spinning rapidly and turned into an enormous sphere of light. It shot towards the tornado like a wrecking ball. The blood radiance of 10,000 cuts spread apart as soon as it touched the tornado. They shot through the barriers made of crushed rock and wood as though nothing was there and pierced deep inside, straight for Ayabashi at the center of the tornado. Ayabashi clearly took a shock when she saw that the barrier made of objects aggregated by the tornado had no effect. She hastily slowed down the speed of the tornado so that she can divert more elements of wind to her shield. The wind energy shield that formed a spherical layer of absolute nothingness around Ayabashi protected her from the red swarm of destructive sword radiances. Hanshuo observed that the speed of the tornado was abruptly reduced, and he made use of the very brief window to attack. As though a crystal cannon that had been energized, he launched himself into the tornado. The enormous tornado of several hundred meters tall and several dozens meters thick, assembled using Ayabashi's divine energy and her domain of divinity, instantly engulfed Hanshuo. The fierce winds carrying rock shards and splinted wood ruthlessly ground him. It even forced Hanshuo to whirl around uncontrollably. Hanshuo's Omen invincible body did not automatically deploy when he faced the attack, as the base defensive power of his demonic body was enough to handle it. Hanshuo was unharmed by the harsh abrasion and blunt force. He even allowed his body to spin with the wind and carefully maneuvered himself closer and closer to Ayabashi, who was at the center of the megastorm. Although the crushed rocks and splintered wood were not as incisive as swords or spears, they nonetheless carried an astonishing amount of power after being accelerated by the tornado to extreme speeds. Even if one could handle the attack, the person would at least suffer some cuts and bruises. Hanshuo, however, was completely unharmed. Ayabashi's astonishment was renewed after she discovered that through the element of wind found all around her. While Ayabashi was baffled and confused, Hanshuo got closer to her by flying with the wind. Then, at some point, the barrier of wind made using wind divine energy and wind elements stopped Hanshuo's path. Hanshuo was yet again obstructed from getting closer. With one thought, the 17 flying swords whistled out from his body. The indestructible 17 flying swords carried intense corrosive and frigid energies, making it an excellent weapon against any kind of shield or barrier. Under the control of Hanshuo's consciousness, the 17 flying swords focused their attacks on a single point on the shield. The wind energy shield was spinning rapidly with the tornado. However, Hanshuo was able to keep track of that single point with insane precision and accuracy. No matter how or where the shield spun, the 17 flying swords would always manage to hit the same point again and again. That single point on the shield was bombarded with ferocious impacting force, terrifying corrosiveness, and frigid energy. Thanks to his absurdly good sight, the 17 flying swords took just 3 waves of attacks to make a hole on Ayabashi's shield of wind energy. Hanshuo abruptly got beside Ayabashi the instant that the wind shield broke. He grinned and said, "Gotcha!" Ayabashi was stunned for a nanosecond. Before she could react, she discovered that she was confined to a bizarre space that abruptly formed within her shield of wind. She also discovered that the instant she fell into the strange space, she lost connection to the element of wind in the environment and could no longer operate her wind shield that had a tiny crack. Once a god with a strength lower than Hanshuo's fell into the ceaseless pain formed from his 17 flying swords, the only thing they could do is to have a fight of endurance with Hanshuo. However, Hanshuo would have a great advantage in the fight as the 17 flying swords had corrosive and frigid properties. In addition, Hanshuo had Cauldron Spirit who could provide him with an endless stream of energy. Therefore, they had practically no chance of winning in an endurance fight against Hanshuo, and Ayabashi was no exception. At the center of soaring Cloud Mountain Range, the spectators gathered around the sand table did not see that hated mist. But the spectators soon discovered that the vision they received was even worse than before. Just the tornado made by Ayabashi occupied around 1/10 of the arena. And when the dust, sand, and soil were driven everywhere by the tornado, the entire arena was shrouded by a brown-gray atmosphere. They couldn't see shit. "I wonder what's really happening in the arena," Erebus seemed anxious. He did not know who he was hoping to win the duel. One was his best friend, while the other was the woman he loved. He was torn between supporting either one of them. "This battle is longer than the previous ones. It seems that Brian is having some trouble in defeating Ayabashi," remarked Rugersi, who was feeling very upset. "Though we can tell that the ongoing battle is very fierce, it's such a pity that we can't see what is happening in the arena. Sai, even till now, we have no idea which elemental or addictal energy Brian is using. I believe that Brian will win this duel and Ayabashi will have to hand over the title as the strongest chief of divine guards to him," remarked Baduk. Although he felt very sullen, he had no choice but to admit that Hanshuo was unfathomably powerful. He was most wary of enemies with strengths he could not gauge. Although Ayabashi was mighty, Baduk could see Ayabashi when fighting her, and he had a rough idea of her strength. Against Hanshuo, however, Baduk felt as though he was fighting against an incorporeal monster. To him, it was much more terrifying to fight something that he could not see. "Carmelita, who are you rooting for?" asked Wallace suddenly. Carmelita stared blankly for a moment and started thinking about it seriously. She replied, "I'm not sure. Sister Ayabashi has been very good to me, but so has Brian." Sister Ayabashi has sat on that position for many years. Perhaps it's time for a change. If that happens, it will make the City of Shadows more refreshing. Wallace's mind was between laughter and tears after he heard Carmelita's response. He thought, this foolish girl, if only she knew all the troubles and disputes that the youngster's rise will stir up. Sai, being a city lord is not easy at all. Soon, the tornado started slowing down. The crushed rocks and trees started returning to the earth. Dust gradually settled, and the arena slowly became visible again. Hanshuo wasn't pointing his Demon Slayer edge at Ayabashi, but the unruffled smile on his face could clearly be seen through the sand table. Ayabashi, meanwhile, looked dejected. It was clear to all the spectators that Hanshuo was yet again victorious. Chapter 803, Distrust GDK 803. Distrust Hanshuo, Ayabashi, and Andre returned to the center area together. The crowd had their eyes gathered on Hanshuo. A constant stream of congratulations and compliments came from members of the 3 major family clans. Hanshuo handled the wave of praises calmly and modestly. The 3 major patriarchs who started having a certain idea did not display too much excitement to Hanshuo on his victory. But Carmelita, Gia, and Erebus, who were friends to Hanshuo, were rather open about it. They celebrated Hanshuo's victory as though it was something unimaginable. Carmelita and Erebus would also console Ayabashi, who lost the battle. Ayabashi, who had carefully considered this outcome as a real possibility before the fight, had managed to find solace after Hanshuo and Andre consoled her during their return journey. She wasn't upset or dejected as the crowd expected. On the contrary, it seemed as though the defeat had only ignited her fighting spirit. She made it known that she will get Han Shuo in the next centennial competition. Wallace grew more concerned as he observed just how close Ayabashi, Erebus, Carmelita, and Andre were becoming with Han Shuo. As the patriarch of the House of Saint, he must think much further ahead than everyone else, and therefore had much more to worry about than all those around him. Unknowingly, Wallace had started to take Han Shuo's influence in the city very seriously. After the first place was determined, it was time to determine the rest of the ranking. After rounds of battles, the new ranking of the strengths of the Divine Guard chiefs was finally determined. From strongest to weakest, Han Shuo, Ayabashi, Erebus, Ralph, Camilla, Batuk, Rudersi. In the duel between Erebus and Ralph, Ralph was defeated as he had exhausted most of his energy when battling Han Shuo. His defeat was rather surprising to the crowd. Ralph was much more silent than usual after the new ranking was set. He had not spoken a single word but sweep his eyes up and down Han Shuo from time to time. No one knew what he was thinking. Han Shuo had given Ralph a strong warning not to try anything silly, and he was on guard against him. If Ralph wasn't a henchman directly under Wallace, Han Shuo might even have eliminated this potential source of danger long ago. But Han Shuo knew that once he does so, his relationship with the House of Saint will instantly sink below the abyss, beyond the point of no return. This was not an outcome Han Shuo wished to see at present, and therefore he did not act on his thought. The competition has concluded. All those who ranked in the top 3 in either of the 2 categories will be rewarded. Brian, the chief of the 5th Corps, takes the first place in both categories. He is given the power to apprehend any member of any family clan directly, without having to first seek for any approval. Also, the taxes levied on shops and forts owned by the House of Han is reduced by half. Wallace announced the prizes after getting the crowd's attention. However, for some reason, Andre seemed rather astonished when Wallace completed his announcement. It was as though what Wallace had just announced was different than what he knew beforehand. He stared at Wallace in a puzzled face and seemed as though he wanted to say something to him. The 3 major patriarchs and the Divine Guard chiefs, all of them raised an eyebrow. In all past competitions, the Divine Guard chief who takes the first place will be rewarded with a piece of territory. This land was usually obtained from lesser family clans that had declined or banished, or one of the many territories owned by the House of Saint. In this competition, however, Wallace did not award Han Shuo a single inch of soil. Han Shuo was rewarded with a bunch of titles, such as the most powerful Divine Guard chief and 500,000 black crystal coins. The tax levied on his House of Han was also reduced by half. These rewards were the same as those given to past winners. Given how prosperous the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy was nowadays, 500,000 black crystal coins wasn't a significant amount of money. It was nowhere as valuable as a fort or a fief. No land is rewarded, as the City of Shadows currently has no surplus fiefdom, and the House of Han has received Fort Lasberg just recently. But as compensation, I will bestow another 500,000 black crystal coins, explained Wallace after he noticed the crowd's puzzlement. For a moment, Andre wanted to say something, but he hesitated. In the end, he said nothing and lowered his head. "Thank you, Lord Wallace," said Han Shuo as he bowed. He seemed happy and did not show the tiniest bit of dissatisfaction. The 3 major patriarchs originally intended to say something, but seeing that Han Shuo had expressed thanks and accepted it gladly, they stammered for a moment and said nothing. They only lightly shook their heads as though they disagreed with Wallace's decision. Ayabashi, Erebus, and Ralph were awarded divine weapons by Wallace. As no one from other family clans was among the top 3 in either category, they did not receive anything. They had expected this, and none of them had any complaints about it. The rewards were finalized. Although the crowd had their disagreements, no one made a single complaint to Wallace. The competition for the centennial was officially over. The party performed yet another round of worshipping ceremony before Wallace finally allowed them to disperse. The patriarchs of the 3 major family clans, the Divine Guard chiefs, and other VVIPs went on their own ways. Han Shuo, too, returned to his 5th Corps in a cheerful appearance. When only Wallace and Andre were left in the area, Andre gestured with his hand and dismissed the Saint family Divine Guards in the area. After they left, Andre puzzlingly asked, The rewards given aren't the same as what I remember. There's supposed to be a piece of land. Elder brother, why is there a sudden change of plan? Andre would never question Wallace for his decisions in front of outsiders. Instead, he waited until they were alone. Wallace and Andre were siblings, and there was nothing that they wouldn't talk about. Andre always thought that his elder brother wasn't an illiberal man. This abrupt decision of Wallace's was a total surprise to Andre. Andre, I know that you and Brian have a great friendship going, but as the patriarch, I must always keep the interest of our Saint family in mind, both present and future. Wallace looked deeply at Andre and asked in a deep voice, don't you think that the House of Han is growing too rapidly? Elder brother, I know exactly what you are worrying about. However, the first-place chiefs had always been rewarded with a piece of land in every single one of the centennial competitions. With this sudden move of yours, everyone will know that you are worried about Brian. And Brian, he might look unsuspecting, but he is more cunning than anyone. He knew exactly what your thoughts are. By doing so, you have achieved nothing but alerting him, replied Andre. He thought that his elder brother had made a mistake. Yes, that is precisely the message I want to send to Brian and the three patriarchs. Andre, the only reason that our Saint family could keep the three family clans in check is that they are intimidated by the strength of our family clan. They have been willing to submit to our rule because we are so much more powerful than any of them. But Brian is threatening the status quo. Not only that he possessed a strength that rivals mine, but his family clan is also rapidly improving in power. We have no choice but to take precautionary measures. Wearing a solemn face, Wallace continued, no matter when or what happens, our House of Saint will always be the ruler of the City of Shadows. I'm reminding those people of this fact. If Brian is indeed loyal to us, then he should have no objection. Andre shook his head in disagreement and responded, Elder brother, I think that this time you are wrong. With Brian, with the House of Han, our City of Shadows will increase in overall strength. If the momentum continues, our City of Shadows will no longer be sitting near the bottom in the Darkness Dominion, but climb and rise in ranking. There might even come a day that we could compete with the City of Gorging Clouds. But if you keep on beating down all other family clans, the City of Shadows will always remain just slightly better than Hushville City, but below all other cities. If things continue to develop at this trend, yes, there might come a day when the City of Shadows could compete with the City of Gorging Clouds. But at that time, the City of Shadows might belong to another family clan, not the House of Saint. Wallace coldly groaned and said, I'm the patriarch of the House of Saint, and I know what I am doing. I don't need any more of your advice on this matter. Andre was astounded when Wallace coerced him with his identity as the patriarch of the House of Saint. Never before had Wallace spoke in that manner to Andre. He was at a loss for a moment, not knowing how to react to those words of Wallace's. When Andre finally came to his senses, he put on a smile that screamed sadness and disappointment and said, All right then, I won't give you any more advice on it. I hope against hope that the decision you made is the right one. Andre was downhearted. He turned around and started leaving with his head drooping. You should start keeping some distance from him, lest you feel troubled if we had to fight him someday, instructed Wallace in a deep voice as he looked at Andre's back. Andre halted. Without turning around, he answered, Yes, I know, Patriarch, and continued flying away. Over at the 5th Corps campsite, the Divine Guards had been waiting expectantly for Han Shuo. As soon as Han Shuo returned, they excitedly asked, My lord, what are the results? You guys have held true to your promise and taken the first place, so have I? Said Han Shuo in a faint smile. Upon hearing those words, the 5th Corps Divine Guards started cheering excitedly, especially the female Divine Guards who had their fiery eyes firmly fixed on Han Shuo. They were so passionate that Han Shuo dared not meet their gazes for more than a split second. Told ya, my master defeated everyone easily. There is no doubt about this, remarked Gilbert complacently. Bollins, who had always been emotionless, revealed a faint smile, an expression very rarely seen Bollins's face. Having worked under Erebus 3rd Corps for ages, Bollins was very familiar with the rules of the centennial competition. Out of curiosity, he asked, Senior, which fief did we receive? There's been a slight change to the rules. We did not receive any territory but an extra 500,000 black crystal coins, said Han Shuo. He still had a faint smile on his face, Ballins was astounded. He stared blankly for a moment and said, "But—" Han Xiuo raised a palm and held back Ballin's words. But instead of explaining, he smilingly said, "Get ready, we will return to the city." Ballins still wanted to say something, but was stopped by Han Xiuo's gaze. Ballins realized that there must be a reason that Han Xiuo did not want to discuss it openly. Although puzzled and confused, Ballins did not ask anything, but nodded. He began instructing the divine guards to make preparations for returning to the City of Shadows. A few of the divine guards, who knew the competition rules well, turned silent. Others who were oblivious to it continued cheering excitedly. Following Ballin's instructions, they completed the necessary preparations in no time and started their return trip in a grandiose manner. Chapter 804. On the crest of a wave, GDK 804. On the crest of a wave, days later, Han Xiuo and his 5th Corps divine guards returned to the City of Shadows. In one of the secret chambers in the Han residence, Han Xiuo, Strathome, Iremike, Ballins, Emily, and all the core members of the House of Han gathered to discuss the competition that was held in soaring Cloud Mountain Range. After everyone was seated, Han Xiuo immediately began the meeting. He said, "Wallace feels threatened by our family clan. It is clear that he is on the guard against us." They had been informed of the results and Wallace's actions. Strathole nodded and said, "It seems that Wallace just couldn't tolerate any kind of potential competition." After the House of Laver's departure, the City of Shadows has reduced in overall strength. It's only recently that our House of Han has started to make up for the dent. But instead of throwing us all his support, he started suppressing us prematurely. Doing so won't do the City of Shadows any good. Perhaps the strength Brian displayed was just too overwhelming, and it scared Wallace. Emily bunched her brows and said, "I'm afraid that our House of Han won't continue to enjoy such a smooth growth in the City of Shadows." Han Xiuo, who took in everyone's expressions and opinions, put on a faint smile and said, "Well, we have reaped plenty of benefits in the City of Shadows already. Although Wallace intends to suppress us, he won't do anything too excessive for now. You don't have to be too worried about it, at least for now." After taking a short pause, Han Xiuo continued, "From today onwards, we House of Han will no longer focus our expansion efforts on the City of Shadows. Instead, we will focus on expanding the Celestial Pearl's influence on all other dominions. As to Fort Lasberg, this territory of ours, as it is located at the edge of the city, we should tighten our grasp over it. We must put in as much thought and effort as we can on Fort Lasberg." That's right. If we House of Han managed to spread our influence to every dominion, even if we fell out with the City of Shadows, we could just pack and leave for somewhere else. If this city doesn't welcome us, another will. There is no place we cannot thrive, said Phoebe angrily. These members of the House of Han were very annoyed that the growth of their family clan was being hindered when the growth was at its highest. No one in the Han family, including Han Xiuo, coveted the City of Shadows or planned to take over it. Wallace's actions had alienated them and forced them to make necessary changes to their plans for the future. From the competition between Divine Guard chiefs, we indeed did not obtain all the rewards expected. Wallace has gifted us nothing but some fame and titles. Han Xiuo said calmly, "However, all those titles that seemed useless to him are the things we currently needed the most. In just a short few days, more than several hundred gods have asked to join the House of Han and the 5th Corps. These people will become the future pillars of strength for our House of Han." The House of Han had plenty of money and land. They lacked nothing but people. Before Han Xiuo had revealed his outstanding strength in the competition, only a few people would consider joining the 5th Corps and his family clan as divine guards. But after Han Xiuo defeated Ralph and Ayabashi and obtained the title as the most powerful divine guard chief. After the 5th Corps crushed the 2nd Corps and became the strongest divine guard corps, the number of enlistments surged by more than 10-folds. Moreover, the enlistees were of much greater quality in terms of aptitude and strength. They were the talents Han Xiuo needed. With that, the divine guards that the House of Han and 5th Corps lacked were quickly filled. The House of Han was no longer a small family clan protected by just a few people. It was as though the House of Han became tougher overnight. Yes, we needed men. The number of divine guards we have now is far too little. If the 5th Corps can assemble 1,000 divine guards, We will put all of them through a round of training in the 8 Desolation and Torment formation to make their strength and power rise to a whole new level. And if they became just half as loyal and united as the first company, even if we were to fall out with the House of Saint in the future, we would have some real bargaining chips," said Bollins after he nodded. "Yes, we need to do all we can to recruit new divine guards, but that doesn't mean we will compromise on quality. Be sure to check the background of every applicant thoroughly. I do not want any of them to be double agent inserted by other family clans who might turn around and bite us during the critical moment. You must keep this in mind. Interrogate every one of the applicants thoroughly." Han Shuo repeatedly emphasized the point. Han Shuo did not want a single potential spy, even if that means the recruitment process will be slow. "Rest assured, Senior. I will make certain that every single recruit is clean," assured Bollins solemnly. As the days passed, all other divine guards and members of large family clans also returned to the city from Soaring Cloud Mountain Range. The outcome of the competition at Soaring Cloud Mountain Range was spread to the entire city by word of mouth. There were even certain forces intentionally spreading the news. Genius Pharmacist defeated Ayabashi and Ralph. The divine guards he trained became the most coordinated team and the most powerful in team combat strength, defeating even the Second Corps. All kinds of positive information about Han Shuo was spread far and wide through various channels. Gods living in every fort and town under the City of Shadows would discuss the matter enthusiastically. "Carter, let's not go to the House of Kisa. We should go to the House of Han instead. The House of Han is currently on the crest of a wave. They even possessed medicine that could raise one's strength. This is indeed the smartest choice. We should go to the Fifth Corps. It is said that the Fifth Corps is currently open for recruiting divine guards. This is a once-in-a-blue-moon opportunity. Aren't you going?" "Me? Forget about it. I'm only a mid-stage mid-god. They will probably reject me at their doorstep." Conversations of similar content were repeated by different people in every corner of the City of Shadows. Experts with great ambitions from every region gathered in the City of Shadows. Their destination, the Fifth Corps and the House of Han. They were willing to do anything to be enlisted. A series of extensive tests were nothing to them. The City of Shadows turned rather crowded all of a sudden as many traveled thousands of miles to the city. Some of them had even traveled from other dominions. They flocked to the city intending to apply to the House of Han or the Fifth Corps as a divine guard. The House of Han and the Fifth Corps suddenly turned very busy, with extremely long queues lining up from their entrances. Bollins, Strathome, and Iremite Cotton, who were in charge of examining the applicants, were busy day in and day out. They carefully reviewed every applicant and held them to the most stringent requirements. The 3 major patriarchs quietly observed the activity in the city. They did nothing as they watched Han Shuo slowly raise an army. After the competition was over, Ayabashi and Erebus were reassigned to distant borders of the city. They did not go to Han Shuo and celebrate his victory. Since the competition, for some reason, Andre and Carmelita had stopped visiting Han Shuo. Members of other family clans who had good friendships with the House of Han also stopped visiting Han Shuo, as though they were afraid of something. As the current situation in the City of Shadows wasn't exactly stable, Han Shuo did not depart for the fringe with Rose, but sat in his Han residence. During this sensitive period, if any kind of chaos were to happen in the city, the House of Han might not make it through without a high god. Han Shuo never take chances when it comes to ensuring the safety of his family clan. He will not leave the House of Han without the absolute certainty of their security. Time passed rapidly. 1 year went by. During that time, the House of Han and the Fifth Corps managed to recruit more than 500 divine guards. The reason they were so slow in recruitment was that the requirement set by Han Shuo was just too stringent. He will only accept extraordinarily talented experts with a clean background. All those who had no tenacity or born with certain issues were rejected, no matter how powerful their strengths were. Once it was made certain that the new recruits will be unswervingly faithful and loyal to Han Shuo, they would be sent into the 8 Desolation and Torment formation to be tempered. Their strengths and vigor would substantially increase with every round of training in the formation. Those who were still on the fence about devoting their lives to serve the House of Han would compromise after they saw those who had pledged their devotion becoming stronger and receiving much better treatment. The temptation was just too great for them. And during this period, Jia of the House of Kinsen would often step into the Han residence to look for Han Shuo with the excuse of seeking his cultivation advice, purchasing medicine, and etc. She would ignore the murderous gazes from Phoebe, Emily, and the other ladies, and shamelessly pull Han Shuo away to talk about anything and everything. As Jia became more frequent in her visit, even those newly recruited divine guards managed to make out that Jia was interested in Han Shuo. There was a large population of youngsters in the city who fawned over Jia. When they noticed that Jia was frequently visiting the Han residence alone and actively looked for Han Shuo, they could not be more angry and frustrated. However, the House of Han and Han Shuo nowadays were untouchable to most. Although those hot-blooded youngsters held resentment at the House of Han, they dared not cause any troubles. All they could do was to pester their family clan to boycott Celestial Pearl Pharmacy. Needless to say, their actions had absolutely no effect on the House of Han or Celestial Pearl. "I hate that little sly fox," said Phoebe for the 1000th time. Emily, Fanny, Jasper, Lisa, Sylph, Helen, and Jimena all shared the same opinion about Jia. Every time Jia came over to the residence, they would be anything but nice to her. There had even been a few conflicts between them. "Brian, we really don't like that woman. Tell us honestly, do you fancy her or do you not?" asked Emily softly. Her exhausted body was laying bare on Han Shuo as she drew circles on his chest with her tender hand. Phoebe, laying tiredly on another side, raised her head with what little energy she had left to look at Han Shuo and softly pinched his lower leg when she heard Emily's question. She asked, "That woman is too pretentious. I don't like her either. Brian, will you please skip her?" Han Shuo, whose every cell was relaxed, nodded contentedly. He answered, "Okay. I am already more than happy to have you all." Phoebe and Emily could not be happier to get that promise from Han Shuo. They lied on Han Shuo comfortably and fell deep asleep. 3 days later, Han Shuo received a handwritten letter from the patriarch Casper of the Kinsen family, proposing that his daughter Jia be betrothed to Han Shuo. He even asked Han Shuo to hold a most pompous and grand ceremony in the City of Shadows to officially wed Jia. When Emily and the others received the news, they hastily gathered around Han Shuo and looked at him nervously. None of them had obtained any sort of official recognition, even though they had been with Han Shuo for such a long time. If Han Shuo were to marry Jia before them and even held a splendid ceremony, none of them were going to accept it. "Don't worry, I won't marry her," said Han Shuo in a faint smile. He proceeded to write a letter, politely declining Casper's proposal right in front of the ladies. He then had Ballins deliver the letter to the Kinsen family. When Han Shuo wrote the letter, he had absolutely no idea that it will eventually lead to a major dispute in the City of Shadows. Chapter 805, GDK 805. Countermeasure GDK 805. Countermeasure the City of Shadows. Kinsen residence. As soon as Ballins left, Casper tore the letter in his hand to shreds. Unbelievable. He actually declined the proposal? Bate and Camilla, who were beside him, were astonished. It was as though they did not think that Han Shuo would even consider that an option. From how they see it, once the House of Han and House of Kinsen were united, even the House of Saint would have to think twice before going all out against them. The alliance of the two family clans would be tremendously beneficial to both sides, with seemingly no downside. Moreover, Jia was famous in the city for her beauty. Casper did not expect that Han Shuo would reject having this beauty delivered to his doorstep. "What the hell is going on in his head?" Bate was rather pissed. She remarked hatefully, "Don't tell me that our House of Kinsen isn't prestigious enough for him." Yes, it is true that the House of Han has been all the buzz lately. But just how long have they lived in the city? Do they that they are capable of going head-to-head with the House of Saint all by themselves? Camilla, inform those two patriarchs of the news. Tell them that the youngster has failed to appreciate our kindness. There's nothing I can do about it, and it's their turn to try something. Casper instructed his sister Camilla in a gloomy face. Camilla nodded and quietly left. Soon enough, the patriarchs of the other two major family clans were informed of the news. The three patriarchs had been communicating in secret for some time. All three held the identical view that they could take advantage of the friction between the House of Han and the House of Saint. They planned on sounding out the House of Saint through Han Shuo. What Caspar did was just the first step of a grand scheme, but unexpected, it failed. Kinloch of the House of Kisa and Laurel of the House of Buller replied that they will not do anything rashly. They intend to wait and observe what Wallace will do about the Fifth Corps. The previous Fifth Corps had basically collapsed with Avery's departure. All their responsibilities were reassigned to other diving guard corps. But currently, the Fifth Corps had recruited 300 new Divine Guards. To add to the company who obtained victory in the competition, the Fifth Corps now had 4 companies in total. They had regained functionality and the capacity to fulfill their previous responsibilities. Logically speaking, Wallace should have returned the power and duties back to the Fifth Corps by now. However, Wallace had been silent on the matter and showed no intention of returning their powers anytime soon. The two patriarchs wanted to continue to observe and see if there will be any conflict between the House of Saint and the House of Han. Back at the Kinson residence. "What?" cried Gia, who had just been informed of the news by her mother, Bate. She furiously shouted, "Who told you to do so? Why didn't you consult me first?" Caspar did not ask for Gia's opinion before sending the letter of proposal to Han Shuo. When Gia learned of the fact, she felt as though she had been deceived, especially when the cruel outcome wasn't what she desired. Gia was extremely incensed. "Half the city knows that you liked that youngster. Your father did that for your own good." Bates sighed and continued, "But we did not expect that the youngster would be so blind and foolish. To decline marrying my beautiful darling for those women he brought from a low-level material plane, he won't be achieving anything great with that little mind of his." "Enough. You will not make any more decisions for me," shouted Gia angrily. She slammed the door and left the Han residence. Emily, Phoebe, and the other ladies were no longer nervous or unhappy. When they watched Han Shu wrote a letter that diplomatically rejects Caspar's proposal, they feel as though they were drinking ice-cold water on a hot summer day. Their minds were relaxed and at ease. Yet another batch of Divine Guards emerged from the 8 Desolation and Torment formation. Each and every one of those energized Divine Guards was tested by Ballins. After conducting tests, Ballins was confident that the Divine Guards were fully capable of completing any kind of missions the city could throw at them. But what a pity that even till now, the House of Saint had been silent and had not assigned them with any task. Ballins went to Han Shu and reported the situation. "All 4 companies of Divine Guards have been staying the Fifth Corps, doing nothing but training and training, because we have not received a single task all this while. The districts the Fifth Corps were previously in charge of were still split among the jurisdictions of the First, Second, and Third Corps. There is no way for them to gain any real-life experiences. With no assignment and no real scope of authority, we can't even leave the city for training. We can't keep doing so any longer." After having received rounds of brainwashing from Ballins, those Divine Guards who joined the Fifth Corps had truly considered themselves as a part of the House of Han. They placed the interest of the House of Han above everything. But unfortunately, the Fifth Corps had nothing to do but practice in the same area in the city. They felt bored long ago. "I'll look for Andre and hopefully he can do something about it." Andre hadn't come over all these while. Wallace must have put a lot of pressure on him. Han Shu thought for a moment and decided to visit the Saint residence. He knew that even if Wallace was wary of him, he cannot drag the issue any longer. "Senior, even if we can't get any privileges, please find a way for us to leave the city. If the companies can go to Fort Lasberg, I have ways to further temper and sharpen them," said Ballins. He was aware that the House of Han and the House of Saint wasn't exactly on good terms. "Got it," nodded Han Shuo, and he headed to the Saint residence right away. Even though Han Shuo had not stepped into the Saint residence for a year, the guards at the main entrance still recognized Han Shuo, and they greeted him politely. But when they heard that he was looking for Andre, they seemed a little troubled. One of them replied, "My apologies. Lord Andre has been in cultivation ever since returning from soaring Cloud Mountain Range, and he wouldn't meet anyone. He remained in seclusion even when the city lord looked for him. It seems that Lord Andre is on the verge of a significant breakthrough." Han Shuo stared blankly for a moment after hearing those words. He realized that Andre must have disagreed with Wallace's actions, or he wouldn't have refused to meet Wallace using this method. Han Shuo understood that it must be a difficult situation for Andre, who was stuck between his family clan and his friend. Oh, I see. If Lord Andre has been using the time to cultivate, then I assume Carmelita has also been doing the same? Asked Han Shuo in a faint smile. That's right. The city lord has pushed Lady Carmelita to cultivate ever since she returned from the mountain range. Like Lord Andre, she had not taken a step out of her gymnasium since then, replied the divine guard hastily. Oh, okay. Never mind then. Han Shuo had no intention of speaking with Wallace. He did not step into the saint residence, but turned around and left. Han Shuo carefully thought about the situation during his way home. He thought that perhaps him leaving the City of Shadows for some time could be a good idea, as Wallace's target was him alone. Han Shuo thought that what truly concerned Wallace was not his House of Han, but he himself. To really suppress the House of Han, Wallace must first keep Han Shuo under control. Other members of the House of Han should be too weak right now to be on his radar. In other words, the members of his House of Han would be safer once he left, and Wallace wouldn't do anything to them. Upon returning to the Han residence, Han Shuo assembled Ballins, Sanguis, Gilbert, Strathome, Iremike, and others, and instructed, "Move all of our family clan's development to Fort Lasberg. Ballins, just ignore those rules. Make some kind of excuses and move all the 5th Corps Divine Guards to Fort Lasberg. Leave just the Celestial Pearl in the city. Every member of our family clan will move to the fort." "Brian, are we leaving the City of Shadows?" asked Strathome. Han Shuo nodded and smilingly replied, "That's what I'm thinking, but I haven't decided yet. You all will stay in Fort Lasberg for now. Focus our growth on other cities or dominions. Make sure not to have any conflict with any members of the major family clans." Following that, Han Shuo wrote 3 letters, one for Wallace, one for Erebus, and one for Ayabashi. He had his divine guards deliver the letters. The letters explained that he will be away from the city for some time. The letter he wrote to Wallace was tactful in wording. It hinted that he had no intention of taking over the City of Shadows, although Han Shuo was certain that Wallace wouldn't believe it. However, Han Shuo believed that if he was not in the city, even if Wallace were to actively suppress the House of Han, he wouldn't do anything too excessive. In the letters he wrote to Erebus and Ayabashi, he asked the two to look after the House of Han when possible. Given how close they were, Han Shuo was certain that the two will do him the favor. Besides, with Andre and Carmelita around, Han Shuo doubted that any family clans would harm the House of Han while he was away. "I always be careful wherever you venture. I will ensure the safety of the House of Han while you are away from the city." I Han Shuo received the letter from Wallace after 3 days. He thought that the letter had verified his suspicions, that Wallace was interested only in him. Han Shuo was finally at ease. After arranging certain things properly in the City of Shadows, he traveled to Fort Lasberg with Rose without resting. Upon arriving in Fort Lasberg, Han Shuo reconstructed the 8 Desolation and Torment formation in the fort. He then used countless materials to construct 4 demonic formations in his mansion house, namely Shura Illusion Formation, Heavenly Thunder Formation, Omen Soul Gathering Formation, and 5 Toxin Mystical Yin Formation. They were arranged around the 8 Desolation and Torment Formation at the center of the mansion house. The materials required to build the 4 new demonic formations were purchased using the 500,000 black crystal coins granted by Wallace. With the help of the Cauldron of Myriad Demon, Han Shuo took half a year to build the formations. Han Shuo was truly at ease after he tested the power of the formations and explained the method of using them to Ballins, Sanguis, Gilbert, and others. With the 4 formations, even if the House of Han were attacked, they will be able to withstand the attack for a long time. Any enemy who dared intruded will pay a hefty price for their recklessness. Even a high god who weren't careful could lose their lives to the formations. With everything properly arranged, with Phoebe and the other moved to Fort Lasberg from the city, with Wallace showing no intention of stopping them, Han Shuo finally left with Rose. Their destination, the Fringe? Chapter 806, GDK 806. Come, hit me. GDK 806. Come, hit me. Setting out for the fringe from the Darkness Dominion, Han Shuo must cross the Death and Lightning Dominions. There were no transportation matrices available. It was a long journey even for Han Shuo. After 3 months of traveling, they passed through Mirage City and Darkwater City. They were stepping into the territory of the City of Gorging Clouds. Throughout the 3 months of traveling, Han Shuo and Rose had been avoiding the city centers as much as possible. When they crossed Mirage City and Darkwater City, they had not entered the main cities but would only stay in the outer towns and forts. Then, one day, they finally stepped into the territory of the most powerful city in the Darkness Dominion, the City of Gorging Clouds. But unlike previously, Han Shuo did not lead Rose through roads far from the city but headed straight for it. "Huh, why aren't you avoiding the city?" Rose was a little surprised when she noticed the decision of Han Shuo's. She asked, "Are you planning to enter the City of Gorging Clouds?" Han Shuo and Rose had been traveling alone for the past 3 months. Rose seemed to be in a better mood during the journey. She was no longer cold and silent to Han Shuo. Han Shuo even noticed that she became more talkative when they were in the City of Shadows. Perhaps that had something to do with her innate dislike of being in a populated area. Although Felder was the person who organized a sneak attack against Han Shuo on his journey to Soaring Cloud Mountain Range, the person who sponsored the most to the attack was Lackreisen of the Broadhurst family. The House of Broadhurst was the most powerful family clan in the City of Gorging Clouds. Their patriarch, Yaris, was the city lord of the city. Not only that Lackreisen had failed in assassinating Han Shuo, but 3 of his experts were killed by Han Shuo instead. Han Shuo doubted that Lackreisen will simply forget about this grudge. Han Shuo wanted to enter the City of Gorging Clouds and learn its situation. And if the opportunity presents itself, Han Shuo would take risks and eliminate Lackreisen, removing this great danger looming over his House of Han. "Yep, I want to check out the City of Gorging Clouds and see just how strong they are," replied Han Shuo after he nodded. Rose was still unaware of the assassins' identities, and therefore she was rather perplexed by Han Shuo's decision. She replied, "As the most powerful city in the Darkness Dominion, the City of Gorging Clouds is way beyond the City of Shadows in overall strength. The House of Broadhurst is also the most ancient family clan in the Darkness Dominion. Not only that they have countless powerful experts, but they are even very united. After the House of Lavers departed from the City of Shadows, they have all relocated to the City of Gorging Clouds. We have taken over their resources and estates in the City of Shadows, and I'm sure that Lavers' family will harbor a grudge at us for that. I wonder how they are doing in the City of Gorging Clouds," said Han Shuo in a faint smile. "Come, let's go and take a look." Rose was always submissive to Han Shuo's orders. She followed Han Shuo towards the city without complaint. After traveling for half a month, Han Shuo and Rose arrived before the City of Gorging Clouds city gates. The great gates were made dark bright, stony material. Tall and ominous, they stood upon either side of the gateway, guarded by numerous solemn and austere divine guards. Above the imposing gates were several oversized crystal cannons, pointing threateningly at the horizon. They were glistening as though 1,000,000 starlight were packed into them. Awe and dread would fell upon all who gazed at them. Those crystal cannons are powered by the arrays of energy towers located behind them. They are so powerful that even an average high god would have trouble resisting a blast, while low gods, they would instantly be vaporized. Rose softly explained when she noticed that Han Shuo's eyes had been lingering around the crystal cannons. "This is indeed no ordinary city. Come, let's get moving." After taking a moment to observe the city from its outside, Han Shuo and Rose paid the entrance fees and entered the City of Gorging Clouds. After entering the city, Han Shuo and Rose spent some time walking around. Han Shuo noticed that the City of Gorging Clouds' defenses were indeed much stronger than the City of Shadows. There were countless crystal cannons and defense towers that relied upon energy crystals erected. Squads of steady and calm divine guards patrolled the streets constantly. Rose concealed her silvery hair, and Han Shuo had slightly altered his appearance. He believed that no one in the City of Gorging Clouds would recognize them. Han Shuo then went to a squad of divine guards passing by them and asked, "Excuse me, do you know where the Lavers family is located?" "Lavers family?" The divine guard of the city of gorging clouds stared blankly at the few pieces of black crystal coins Han Shuo put in his hand for a moment. He then turned to his comrade and asked, "Is there any family in the city called Lavers?" "Yeah, there is. Just recently a family clan called Lavers from the City of Shadows has moved here. I hear say that a woman in that family named Donna will be married to Lord Lackrisen's son in a few days. Hee, this means that the House of Broadhurst will soon gain yet another vassal family clan." Another divine guard interrupted. He then said to Han Shuo that Laver's family is living at the south side of the city. "Many thanks," replied Han Shuo before he left the squad with Rose. Han Shuo did not expect that something like this would happen to Donna. Although Han Shuo had a bad history with the House of Lavers, he always remained grateful to Donna. Han Shuo believed that Donna had nothing to do with Felder's attempt to assassinate him. Now when Han Shuo heard that Donna will be married to Lackrisen's son, for some reason, Han Shuo just doesn't feel comfortable with that thought. Having obtained the information he needed, Han Shuo and Rose quietly traveled to the southern region of the city. As Han Shuo did not want to reveal his identity and strength in this foreign land, with divine guards patrolling every corner of the streets, he could not travel too fast. It took him 1 day and half a night to arrive at the southern region and locate the Lavers' residence. Compared to their previous residence in the City of Shadows, the current Lavers' residence was of much poorer quality. The southern region wasn't a prosperous district of the city of gorging clouds. Their manor had just a few structures that seemed badly maintained. Han Shuo felt somewhat apologetic when he saw the scene. Without any particularly tough defenses, Han Shuo's demon generals successfully trespassed into the residence. Under the cover of the night, the demon generals refined from high god souls were able to conceal themselves better. They managed to explore the entire Lavers' residence without alerting a single soul. Soon enough, one of the demon generals located Donna in a gymnasium. She had deployed a barrier of darkness, but it couldn't block Han Shuo's demon general as she wasn't a high god. Donna was dressed in an emerald green combat suit and wearing crannied brows. She seemed rather miserable and lacked the elation of a bride-to-be. Dolores was with her. He was acting as her living punch bag and was bombarded with attacks powerful enough to cause pain, but not enough to cause serious injuries. Every inch of his body had been repeatedly pounded by Donna's fists. He was beaten black and blue and in immense agony. Bam! / Dolores was sent flying backward, and he slammed his back onto the wall of the gymnasium. "Stop!" Dolores raised his hands and begged for mercy. "Please, that's enough. It's very late already and I need to rest. No more fights." "Again," replied Donna. She started walking towards Dolores ferociously. "Elder sister, I know that you are not in a good mood, but you can't just vent all your anger at me like this every day." Dolores shouted, "That last incident has nothing to do with me. Lord Patriarch brought me there because I'm familiar with the region. Besides, the youngster killed our uncle and took over everything we had in the City of Shadows. Is it wrong for us to take revenge at him? Sister Donna, you are also a member of the Lavers family. Can't you understand the situation? If it wasn't for your brother Deluxus, Brian wouldn't have become hostile towards our family right from the beginning and none of this shitstorm would have happened." Donna angrily shouted, "Now our House of Lavers have plunged to this shithole, and I'm forced to marry that imbecile. Why do I have to suffer this?" As Donna shouted, she charged at Dolores and began yet another round of punching and kicking. Dolores dared not fight back, and he allowed Donna to assault him. When Donna finally stopped punching as though she got tired, Dolores shouted, "Don't ask me. You should ask Lord Patriarch instead. I'm not qualified to answer that." As soon as he finished those words, Dolores quickly limped his way out of the gymnasium. Donna turned exhausted right after Dolores left, as though tiredness had suddenly overcome her. "What's the point? The interest of the family is above everything else. I have been taught that since young. Am I going to watch the Lavers family walk down the path of destruction?" mumbled Donna helplessly. She was physically and mentally exhausted. "Come, hit me." A voice suddenly sounded from the main entrance of the gymnasium. Shortly after that, all the doors and windows automatically shut themselves. Several layers of bizarre boundaries formed within the gymnasium. Not a sound made in the gymnasium could travel past the boundaries. Donna seemed confused for a moment before she started laughing. She stared at the person who appeared before her without warning and mumbled to herself, "I must have been too stressed, so much so that I'm now hallucinating." Elder sister Donna, you aren't hallucinating. It's really me. Han Shuo's heart ached when he saw Donna in this state now. He wondered, is this the same Donna who could remain calm and collected no matter what happens? The poised and regal demeanor that Donna carried when she arrived on Profound Continent was nowhere to be seen. The disheartened and dispirited Donna standing before Han Shuo then looked like another person to him. "Though it's just a hallucination, I can make do with it," shouted Donna suddenly, and she charged at Han Shuo. She started punching and kicking Han Shuo wildly while shouting, "Why? Why fight my family out of all people? Why did you kill my uncle? Why did you have to destroy everything my Lavers family had? Have I ever did you any wrong? Tell me, why, why?" Donna repeatedly struck Han Shuo as she shouted maniacally. After a while, Donna, who was beside herself with grief, suddenly noticed that every punch she threw hit something that felt solid and very real. She suddenly stopped attacking and looked at Han Shuo bewilderedly. Her eyes slowly turned bright and clear. After a long while, Donna cried out in surprise, It's really you? How is this possible? How come you are here?" "I happen to be traveling past this place, and I thought I might as well pay you a visit," replied Han Shuo as he forced a smile. Donna stared deeply at Han Shuo for a dozen seconds, and she suddenly threw herself into Han Shuo's chest. She started weeping as she embraced Han Shuo. Chapter 807, I've been waiting for you. Chapter 807, I've been waiting for you. Han Shuo could feel her large and soft bosom pressed against his chest. He felt every shiver as she cried. Han Shuo's mind started wandering to the past, recalling the moments he spent with Donna back on Profound Continent. After crying for a long time, Donna suddenly pushed Han Shuo away. She glared at Han Shuo and asked, "What are you here for?" Han Shuo did not know what to answer. After hesitating for a while, he finally said, "I heard that you are getting married, so I came to see how you are doing. It's none of your concern." Donna seemed to have gotten much angrier when Han Shuo spoke of the marriage. She hatefully said, "Are you happy now, or do you think that my family could do worse? What more do you want?" Han Shuo was tongue-tied for a moment. He felt ashamed when he looked at the teary Donna standing before him. He let out a sigh and replied, "This isn't what I wanted. I did not make enemies with the Lavers, it's they who made an enemy with me. I have been passive all along. If your Uncle Avery had not tried to kill me twice, I wouldn't have killed him. What's the point of saying these? You have won, you have obtained everything that my House of Lavers had. You killed my uncle, you won," Donna shouted. "Now we have to live by relying on the City of Gorging Cloud's charity. And I'm to be sacrificed like a bargaining chip. What more do you want?" "Donna, leave with me," Han Shuo said. "I know that you do not like the arrangement made by your family clan. You are not responsible for the mistakes your Lavers family made and should not bear all the consequences yourself. Why not leave this place and start a new life elsewhere?" "Do you really think I would do that? Have you thought about what will happen to the Lavers family once I leave the City of Gorging Clouds? They are going to get exterminated. Do you think I will be so selfish to abandon my family clan and let the hundreds of them perish?" Han Shuo lowered his head and looked at the ground in silence. He knew that Donna would never do that. "Leave. I don't want to see you. Just pretend that we have never known each other," said Donna tearfully. "On account of you, I'll forget about your father's attempt to assassinate me and won't retaliate against the House of Lavers." Han Shuo looked intensely at Donna and said, "No matter what happens, I will not forget your kindness. We will meet again, Donna." Han Shuo turned around and left after saying those words. "You heartless monster, how could you leave just like that?" After Han Shuo left, Donna seemed to have lost all energy. She collapsed on the floor and cried uncontrollably. Back then, on the Profound Continent, Donna and Han Shuo had been through hardships and challenges together. She was attracted by Han Shuo's mysteriousness. As they learned more about each other, Donna became more and more admiring of Han Shuo. And after she returned to Elysium, she discovered that she had an unusual longing for Han Shuo that grew with each day past. She had, therefore, made plenty of arrangements in preparation for his arrival. After having waited impatiently for many years, Donna slowly realized that she felt more than simple admiration towards Han Shuo. On the day that Han Shuo finally showed up at the Lavers' residence, Donna was over the moon. But shortly after, Donna realized that she had fallen for Han Shuo. The relationship between him and the Lavers family rapidly deteriorated. A series of events then further escalated the hostility. And then everything went irreparable thanks to Avery. The more terrible the relationship between Han Shuo and the House of Lavers becomes, the more agonizing Donna felt. One was the family and relatives she grew up with, while another was the man she loved. Donna was stuck between two sides. When the House of Lavers was forced to leave the City of Shadows, and when Han Shuo killed Avery, who hid in Hushville City, the pain that dwelled in her heart grew by 1,000 folds. She did not know how to live with it. Then, shortly after, she learned that Han Shuo's influence had been swelling in the City of Shadows. His House of Han had not only completely superseded the House of Lavers' place in the city, but Han Shuo had even defeated Ayabashi and became the most powerful chief of Divine Guards. The Fifth Corps under his leadership also took first place in team combat strength. It was clear to Donna from the strength that Han Shuo displayed that he was at least a mid-stage high god. Meanwhile, Donna was still in midgodhood. No matter in terms of Han Shuo's position in the city or his strength, Han Shuo had far surpassed her. In all of a sudden, Donna found that the distance between them had become insurmountably great. It was also around this time that the House of Lavers was pressured by Lachraisin, who is probably the second most powerful man in the city of Gorging Clouds. Donna's father begged her to accept Lachraisin's demand to marry his infamous good-for-nothing son. As Donna felt that there was no longer any hope of getting together with Han Shuo, and she couldn't leave her family clan to perish. In the end, she agreed to Felder's demand. Donna, who had given up all home, tried to forget everything about the past. It was at this that Han Shuo appeared out of the blue. And yet, unfortunately, there was nothing that she could do to change anything. A gloomy future seemed anything but uncertain. Han Shuo left the gymnasium and returned to Rose in a gloomy face. Obviously, Han Shuo wasn't in a good mood. "What's the matter?" Rose bunched her brows and asked. "The House of Lavers have reaped what they sowed. Shouldn't you be happy that they have fallen to this situation?" After having stayed with the House of Han for so long, Rose knew a thing or two about the conflict between Han Shuo and the House of Lavers. Rose had even assisted Han Shuo in murdering Avery in Hushville City. She thought that Han Shuo had come here to kill every last one of the Lavers. She did not expect that Han Shuo would return with this reaction. "I don't give a damn what happens to the House of Lavers, but there is a person in there who had helped me many times. I'm not going to forget the favor given to me easily." Han Shuo turned around to take another look at the Lavers' residence before he said, "We won't leave the city just yet. There's someone that I want to kill." Naturally, Rose had no objection, and she nodded indifferently. After staying in the city of Gorging Clouds for 2 days, Han Shuo managed to learn everything about Lachraisin's son, Rashid. Like most offspring of the rich and powerful, Rashid was weak in strength and spent most of his time drinking and being a punter. Thanks to the lofty position of the House of Broadhurst, few in the city dared cause him any trouble. He frequently visits the most luxurious shops all around the city and spends extravagantly. An entourage of divine guards would accompany him at all times. There was basically nothing good about this guy. Donna's life would be wrecked if she was married to him. After having figured out the places that Rashid frequently visits, Han Shuo finally made a move. On that night, Rashid was in the largest auction house in the city of Gorging Clouds called Dreamy Milky Way. He was bidding on a slave with other kids with rich parents. Other than on Profound Continent, the elves were also found on Elysium. They were also famous in this world for their beauty. Rashid was currently bidding on a young female elf. She was small and petite. She seemed to be only at the age of a pre-puberty human girl. The few kids with rich parents raised the bidding price excitedly. Their eyes were blazing when they looked at that young female elf. It seemed as though all of them had some sort of perverted psychiatric disorder. The price for the little elf girl was quickly raised to 30,000 black crystal coins from the base price of 5,000 black crystal coins. At this price level, only a few could afford to continue bidding. Rashid was wearing a complacent face and a big smile as though the elf was within his grasp. "Rashid, you are going to get married soon. Wouldn't your fiancée be angry if she found out that you are buying this slave?" A bidder contending against Rashid asked smilingly from a distance. "So what if she found out?" Rashid smirked and replied, "That woman's family clan has declined. She has nothing me. I'm only marrying her because my father asked me to. He wants to firmly control her family clan using the marriage. She should be aware of this as well, and she wouldn't dare to even try to control me. Hee, but that woman has pretty good looks. I'll very much enjoy doing her. So that means you are determined to win this?" That person stared blankly for a moment before asking smilingly. "Of course." Rashid put on a big smile and called, 40,000. "So, Dirk, are you going to fight me on this one?" That youngster called Dirk shrugged and replied, 40,000 black crystal coins for a slave isn't worth it. "I'm out, haha, then thank you," replied Rashid contently. He enjoyed the feeling of being superior to others. 50,000? A call suddenly came from Han Shuo, who had slightly altered his appearance. Rashid, who was getting ready to collect the slave, immediately bunched his brows when he heard that someone put up a higher bid. His face turned dark and he asked, "Hey, who are you? I have never seen your face before. Are you new to the city? How dare you vie against me? Cut the fucking crap. Are you going to bid or not? Just give up and yield if you don't have money," replied Han Shu unmannerly in a stubborn face. All those who knew Rashid were astounded. They simultaneously turned to look at Han Shu mournfully, thinking that the outsider was going to die out on the streets that night. Well, life wouldn't be interesting without a little bit of a challenge. Rashid's expression transformed and he yelled, 60,000. 70,000, called Han Shu calmly. Rashid emboldened himself and bid 80,000. 100,000. Han Shu side-glanced Rashid and mockingly said, "If you don't have enough crystal coins, just call it quits. This isn't a game you can afford to play." Rashid was exasperated. Out of anger, he yelled, 110,000? What a tool. A slave like her is worth 50,000 at most. Your brain must be the size of a pea. Han Shu chuckled mischievously and declared, "I'm out, bye." Han Shu turned on his heels and left. Rashid was incensed. He had never tasted such humiliation in his life. He turned to one of his henchmen and instructed, "You, stay and bring her home." Then his gaze turned to the others and he said, "The rest of you come with me. Someone is gonna get killed tonight." "That guy is out of luck to have offended Rashid," commented the crowd. Han Shuo took a sharp turn down a dark alley soon after he exited the auction place. As expected, Rashid and his men appeared and surrounded him. He put on a cold smirk and said, "Where you think you are going, punk? I've been waiting for you." Han Shuo grinned, and suddenly the 17 flying swords whooshed out from him. Rashid and his gang were killed in an instant. They turned into nothing but a pool of bloody liquid. "Let's go, to the fringe," said Han Shuo to Rose, who was hiding in the darkness, and the duo evacuated unhurriedly. A few locals who walked out from the auction place in search of amusement saw nothing but two figures disappearing. Chapter 808, Ethereal City GDK 808. Ethereal City, Han Shuo and Rose traveled through the Death and Lightning Dominions and arrived at the Space Dominion. The journey took them 2 years. Han Shuo did not rush with the journey. He had been wandering through various major cities of the Death and Lightning Dominions, visiting numerous mountains and valleys, taking his time to meditate, collecting countless precious materials and medicinal ingredients. He even forged some extraordinary demonic weapons. Han Shuo was at ease and had no burden during those 2 years. His heart and soul had been in a tranquil state. His demonic yuan had been raising very rapidly thanks to the nourishment of the miraculous pelleted medicines he made for himself. He had a vague feeling that breaking through the Omen realm could be near. Both his avatars of death and destruction had attained late-stage midgethood during those 2 years. If they ever lacked the divine energy of death or destruction, Han Shuo would just strike at the god hunters that plagued the remote mountains and valleys. His 2 avatars were yet again on the verge of a breakthrough. They will soon ascend to high godhood. Han Shuo became more and more adept with the use of his hybrid domain of divinity. While sparring with Rose, the hybrid domain of divinity made by his 2 mid-god avatars managed to surpass Rose's. It could even keep her domain of divinity firmly contained. Han Shuo had placed his focus on cultivation throughout the journey. Although it had only been 2 years, Han Shuo had made tremendous progress in his realm state. It caused his demeanor to change. Even Rose, who had been with him all these while, found Han Shuo to be more and more enigmatic. During the period, Rose had also obtained plenty of benefit from Han Xiu. He would generously share the invaluable medicines he made from the precious natural ingredients he collected along the journey with Rose. The medicines had transformed and improved her body. When she cultivated using the pill of tranquility, it would set her mind at ease, and she would often gain new profound insights into the energy of darkness. With the nourishment of all kinds of pelleted medicines, Rose's strength had also been soaring, and she was also on the verge of a breakthrough. Rose, who had been together with Han Xiu 24 hours a day, realized that Han Xiu had never treated her like a slave. On the contrary, she would surely get a share of any good stuff that Han Xiu found. During the 2 years, Rose had unknowingly become dependent towards Han Xiu. There would even be a faint smile on her face when she talked to Han Xiu. Rose had subconsciously accepted her new identity and Han Xiu. As soon as Han Xiu and Rose stepped into the Space Dominion, they noticed that it was unlike any other divine dominions. In the dominions of death, darkness, and destruction, the most commonly found gods were those who cultivated in those energies. It was uncommon to find cultivators of the energy of wind, fire, earth, and lightning. It's needless to say that cultivators of life, light, and water energy will never be seen there. But things were very different in the Space Dominion. One could easily find gods who cultivated in any type of energy. Cultivators of the energy of death, darkness, and destruction do not spontaneously try to kill every cultivator of the energy of life, light, and water they saw, and vice versa. The fringe was located between the space and destiny dominions. If Han Xiu plots a straight path for it, it will take him at most 3 months to get there. However, Han Xiu had another plan. Han Xiu, the 5 elite zombies, and the little skeleton had made an appointment to meet at the ethereal city of the Space Dominion, and the time for the appointment was approaching. Therefore, Han Xiu planned to stay in the Space Dominion for some time. He thought he might visit the fringe after the reunion. Han Xiu had not seen them for a long time, and he missed them very much. When the elite zombies and little skeleton left Han Xiu, their strengths were nothing outstanding. Like an ordinary father concerned about their kids traveling afar, there had not been a day that Han Xiu did not worry about their safety. The 5 elite zombies were refined from the 5 elemental yuan energy. They were born with a superb understanding of their respective yuan energy, and Han Xiu was certain that they will have no trouble comprehending the energy they cultivated in. Han Xiu reckoned that if they could raise sufficient divine energy, the 5 elite zombies could be improving in strength at a rate greater than that of Sanguis, Ballins, and Gilbert. After being apart from the elite zombies for nearly 50 years, Han Xiu could not be more excited to see them again. He thought, I wonder what realm have they cultivated to. At least Midgothood, I guess. I other than the elite zombies, Han Xiu had also promised McKinley, the Space Edict cultivator trapped in the Holy Grail, to visit the Space Dominion. Therefore, it was necessary for Han Xiu to stay in the Space Dominion for at least some time. After Han Xiu scouted his surroundings with his demon generals, making sure that the mountain range was safe, Han Xiu took out the Holy Grail and, using his consciousness, he transmitted, "McKinley, I have arrived at the Space Dominion. What should I do next?" "We are there." McKinley was excited to receive the transmission. He cried, "Are we really at the Space Dominion?" Han Xiu had not talked to McKinley for a long time, but fulfilled his promise to bring McKinley to the Space Dominion. McKinley was trapped in the Grail for many millennia. His soul became very ecstatic when regaining his freedom seemed within grasp. "I must say, this Dominion is really an interesting place. Haha, I'm stepping on the territory of the Space Dominion. Tell me, what should I do next?" Transmitted Han Xiu. "Head to Ethereal City. That's where I used to live," replied McKinley's divine soul excitedly. Although the land held by Space Dominion was no smaller than that of the Darkness Dominion, there were only 3 major cities, namely, Ethereal City, Sanctus City, and Fantasia City. The 3 cities occupied 2/3 of the entire Space Dominion. There were no restrictions on who could enter. All gods, no matter the energy they cultivated in, were allowed to enter and live in those cities. The divine guards of those cities normally wouldn't interfere with the day-to-day activities of the inhabitants. Small fights and brawls were common in the Space Dominion, which the divine guards wouldn't care to interrupt. They would only step in on some large-scale fights and on matters that would affect the normal operation of the cities. Not all the Space Dominion Divine Guards were cultivators of Space Edict. Most of them were volunteers made up of foreign experts who went there to avoid conflicts between other Divine Dominions. Their only duty was to keep their cities functioning normally. They loved the freedom they enjoyed, and they wished to preserve their unfettered way of life that only the Space Dominion could provide. The Overgod of Space frequently travels between various material planes and rarely stayed in the Space Dominion. His approach to managing his dominion was to be completely hands-free and to leave it all to his followers. Most of the powers and all of the tasks were delegated to the administrators. It made the Space Dominion a very unique region. When Han Shuo heard that McKinley's destination was Ethereal City, he smiled and replied, "That's great. I'm also heading to Ethereal City. We both have the same destination, and I don't have to take a detour." "What are you going to Ethereal City for?" McKinley was puzzled. He knew that Han Shuo had never been to the Space Dominion and couldn't understand why he would be going to the city. "Oh, I have an appointment with someone," replied Han Shuo. After thinking for a bit, Han Shuo asked, "Where should I go after entering the city? Who do I look for and how?" McKinley hesitated for a moment before he transmitted back to Han Shuo. "Head to the city first and learn about the current situation. I haven't decided just yet." Han Shuo understood that as McKinley was only left with his divine soul, he did not have much power in defending himself. If the person he wanted to meet tried to harm him, there wouldn't be much that he could do. Therefore, he must consider his plan very carefully. "All right then, I'll head to Ethereal City. You still have time to decide." Without saying much, Han Shuo put away the Grail imprisoning McKinley. "The divine soul in the Grail is very powerful. Who is the person?" asked Rose. She was around when Han Shuo and McKinley chatted, and she could sense the fluctuation from McKinley's divine soul. "A very unlucky high god. He's one of the reasons I came to the Space Dominion," Han Shuo casually explained. Rose seemed astonished. After staring blankly for a moment, she asked, "What realm is he at?" "Late-stage high god. But without his divine body, he could only stay inside the pitiful little Grail." "Haha," replied Han Shuo. After taking a deep breath, Han Shuo smilingly instructed, "Come, let's head to Ethereal City." Half a month later, Han Shuo and Rose stepped into Ethereal City. The Divine Guards there weren't strict about restricting entry to the city. They didn't even demand any payment of crystal coins from Han Shuo or Rose. After taking a glance at their divine tablets, the duo was allowed to enter. Those living in the Space Dominion wouldn't need to worry about attacks from other divine dominions. There normally wouldn't be any large-scale fight happening in the cities. These divine guards basically need only to maintain the most basic order. Their presence was close to dispensable to the existence of Ethereal City. The Ethereal City, other than the gods cultivated in a wide variety of energies, Han Shuo noticed that it was much more bustling than the other cities he visited. It might be because the Space Dominion had just 3 main cities. Shops selling divine weapons, divine scrolls, energy crystals, medicines, and many other things covered every corner. The city was so enormous that it would take around 1 week to visit the entire city by flying. An average low god and high god would need even more time. Han Shuo wasn't too interested in the bustling activities in Ethereal City. As soon as he stepped inside, he unfolded his consciousness and started wandering around the city with Rose. The 5 elite zombies and little skeleton were made using Han Shuo's blood essence. Han Shuo could sense their presence if they were within a certain range. If any one of them were in Ethereal City, Han Shuo will be able to locate them after circling the city once through. Han Shuo flew across the streets with his consciousness fully unfolded. However, after flying for a full day, he still did not discover the presence of any of the elite zombies or little skeleton. He thought, perhaps none of them have come yet, or did they ran into troubles? Just as Han Shuo started to feel worried, he suddenly sensed Earth Elite Zombies' presence. Han Shuo was overjoyed. He immediately sped up and flew towards Earth Elite Zombie with Rose. Chapter 809, Han 2 GDK 809. Han 2 near the west of Ethereal City, a rather peculiar fight was happening. 3 mid-gods that cultivated in the energy of Earth stood with their backs sticking closely with each other. Their brows were bunched, and they were looking all around vigilantly. ready to handle any sudden attacks. Then, the ground between the three slowly sunk without them noticing. A pair of hands stealthily came out from the hole and tickled one of those feet. The person who got tickled was startled. He immediately swung the huge hammer in his hand at the ground. His other two partners only stared blankly for a moment before they reacted. They immediately shouted, "Kill him!" and sent a burst of earth energy towards those sneaky hands. The pair of hands that appeared from the ground suddenly crystallized, while the element of earth wildly converged in its palms and formed a thick layer of armor. One of those hands swept forward and blocked the enormous hammer, while the other swatted on one of the attacker's soles. Arg! A miserable shriek sounded. The person felt as though all of the earth's energy were concentrated on his foot. His bones made a few cracks before that foot of his shattered and started spurting blood. "Don't step on the ground," one of them shouted. Their earth divine energy had shot into the ground. However, when their attacks landed, the earth that they knew so well suddenly seemed all so unfamiliar to them. It was as though layers of barriers had deflected their divine energy. They realized that their attacks were, yet again, ineffective. A shiny broadsword filled with divine energy was suddenly thrust at the region where the two hands appeared. Ting! The broadsword, which should have pierced into the ground like a hot knife through butter, bounced off as a burst of sparks came out from its tip. Evidently, this attack had also caused no harm to the sneaky attacker. The gods living in Ethereal City surrounded the area and watched the fight from a distance. They seemed very curious and would discuss the fight in low voices. Although all of those in the fight were cultivators of the earth element, the expert who was hiding underground had shown extreme mastery on the utilization of earth element, as though he was one with the earth. Although the expert had never shown his face, from the power contained in the divine energy on his two hands, the onlookers could tell that he was around the same strength as those three above the ground. They were all in around mid-stage midgethood. Although they were all in the same realm, the expert hiding underground had stayed on the front foot all along. Although he had not been an inch off the ground, he could somehow move anywhere he wanted to. He could quickly throw a sneak attack at his opponents, immediately retreat underground, and move elsewhere. Evidently, this expert was on a whole nother level in his mastery and understanding of the earth element. Who could this fella be? He is only a mid-god, and yet he commands such spectacular mastery over earth energy. "Absolutely unbelievable," exclaimed a bystander who cultivated in the energy of wind. "I have met a few high gods of earth before, but never have I seen anyone who could conceal themselves underground so fluidly and effortlessly. Not only that, but this expert could even form crystal fortification on his hands. Could he be concealing his actual strength? Otherwise, how could a mid-god have such profound knowledge into the element of earth?" Another bystander exclaimed in disbelief. This mysterious expert has stayed in Ethereal City for some days, but he had never come out from the ground even till now. "I wonder how he or she looked," remarked a bystander. While the crowd was talking, the underground guy again miraculously disappeared himself, as though he had never appeared. The mid-god who lost a foot diverted divine energy to the injured leg. A vein on his leg burst from the skin. The trio of mid-gods no longer dared stand on the ground, but hovered in midair cautiously. They looked incredibly distressed. Cultivators of the element of earth could unleash their fullest potential only when they had their feet on the ground. They need to be touching the ground to utilize the energy found in the ground, and it will allow them to gather the element of earth faster than they could while hovering in midair. The sight of three gods of earth not being able to step on the ground seemed very bizarre and ironic to the onlookers. Those who didn't know might even think that the three were cultivators of the wind element fighting an invisible earth element expert. "Hand 2, show yourself if you have balls. Don't hide underground like an ostrich," shouted that mid-god whose leg was bleeding. He was looking at the ground below him and gnashing his teeth. His two partners were standing on his two sides. They seemed to be in great headaches. "Hand 2, wow, so it's him. Why is this person in the space dominion?" A mid-god of fire cried out in surprise. He seemed to know the background of the expert hiding underground. "Excuse me, mate, do you know who that mysterious earth energy cultivator is?" Those standing beside him turned to the mid-god of fire and asked. They were dying to know the mysterious person's identity. Han Tu is an Earth energy expert who's recently been rising in fame in the Earth Dominion. It is said that when he first arrived at the Earth Dominion, he had just mid-stage low god strength. But somehow, he managed to rapidly soar in strength and attained mid-stage mid-god realm in just a short few decades. He had made a lot of enemies in the Dominion, but no one could catch him. Explained the mid-god of fire. He was pleased to receive such attention. After taking a short pause, when he saw that the onlookers were still staring at him, he put on a faint smile and continued, "He is very skilled at the use of earth energy. Some even said that his understanding of the earth element has surpassed those of a high god. He is a very mysterious character. No one seemed to know where he came from or his goals. He attracted the attention of many high gods soon after entering the Earth Dominion. I have even heard rumors from the Earth Shrine that the over-god of Earth had summoned him for a meeting, but he refused. He's been a loner and an eccentric in the Earth Dominion. Although he had offended many, no high gods could capture him. So it turns out to be him. I have heard rumors about this person the last time I visited the Earth Dominion," said a god as he walked to the crowd from a distance. He then added, "Strange things have been happening these days. Many young but outstanding experts have started appearing in every dominion. I hearsay of this fella, named Han Mu, who has been making news in the Life Dominion. He too attracted the attention of the Overgod of Life. From the Fire Dominion is a guy called Han Huo. They all have strange names, but they all have the word, Han. There is a youngster from the Darkness Dominion called Brian who's also been rising in fame. Rumor says that he came to Elysium from a low-level material plane just recently. But somehow, despite his origin, he has supreme skills in refining medicines and possessed terrifying strength. I heard that he even defeated a high god. It seems that a wave of miraculous experts is popping out from all the dominions," remarked a low god of death. "That youngster called Brian is really awesome. I have heard a thing or two about him when I was in the Destruction Dominion. They say that he founded a pharmacy named Celestial Pearl, if I remember correctly. The business has been flourishing in the Darkness Dominion." Yada yada yada. The onlookers started discussing the phenomenon. For a moment, that had forgotten about the three mid-gods that were still hovering in midair and Han Tu under the ground. Then, suddenly, a group of earth energy cultivators wearing matching divine armor as the trio arrived at the area in a haste. The squad made of 10 gods seemed to be a detachment of divine guards from some family clan. It was composed of an early-stage high god, 3 late-stage mid-gods, and 6 mid-stage mid-gods. The high god that led the squad was short and brawny. He had dry, yellowish skin. As soon as he arrived, he glowered at the 3 hovering in midair and shouted, "Get back on the ground." The 3 mid-gods cowered. Following the angry shout, they immediately landed on the ground. The mid-god who lost a leg sullenly reported, "Lord Varan, Han Tu should be right underground." "Do you really need to remind me that?" replied the high god named Varan in an annoyed manner. He looked all around with his eyes that were glinted ferocious rays and coldly shouted, "Have you folks seen enough yet? Get lost." Varan had high god strength, while the onlooking gods were mostly of low god and mid god strengths. After hearing Varan's shout, the crowd started dispersing. Although they wished to see more actions, they were too intimidated to stay and watch. "Han Tu, I know you are underground. Don't think that you can escape us just because you have come to the Space Dominion. I'll tell you this, we will get to you no matter where you run." After the crowd dispersed, Varan lowered his head and coldly shouted at the ground. Suddenly, large spikes shot out from the ground. That mid-god who lost a leg was hit. A large spike struck right his crotch. A miserable loud shriek sounded as the pain swarmed to his brain. The divine guards did not expect to be attacked in Varan's presence. Having been caught off guard, 3 of the divine guards were struck. Some had their foot pierced, while some received injuries on their legs. They hastily flew back to the sky before cursing at the ground while grimacing in pain. Varan was enraged. He sent a burst of divine energy towards the earth and cried, "Han Tu, show yourself if you have the guts." A deafening explosion sounded from trembling ground. As Varan was a high god, the power contained in his attack was nothing ordinary. Several hundred meters from the gang, Earth Elite Zombie emerged from the ground. He said to Varan, "Fucker, stay here if you have the guts. My father will be here soon, and he will beat the shit out of you." Earth Elite Zombie had not changed in appearance even after decades, and he still had that naive look. But one thing had changed. His eyes were glinting with energy and intelligence. He had even learned to use vulgarities and behave arrogantly. It was almost half as good as Han Shuo could do. Varan stared blankly for a moment, as though he did not expect that Earth Elite Zombie would have a father. He took a quick glance at his crying and screaming divine guards before he replied, "Your father. I'm not going anywhere even if your grandpa comes. Let's see if he can even touch me." Chapter 810, Come and Kill Me, GDK 810, Come and Kill Me. Han Shuo, who was rushing to Han Tu, had sensed the excitement from his soul just as Han Tu could. Earth Elite Zombie could also detect Han Shuo's presence from within a certain range. Rose, who had been following Han Shuo in wandering about the ethereal city, was surprised when Han Shuo had suddenly accelerated and flown towards a direction at full speed. She had no idea what was going on in Han Shuo's head. Rose did not question, but followed behind Han Shuo silently while making guesses. "Father!" An excited cry from the depth of Earth Elite Zombie's soul entered Han Shuo's consciousness even though they were many blocks apart. "I will be there soon." Han Shuo's demon generals had arrived there long ago. He had seen Earth Elite Zombie fighting the three mid-gods, as well as hearing the conversation between Varan and Earth Elite Zombie. Han Shuo did not expect that Earth Elite Zombie would have attained mid-stage mid-god realm in just a short few decades. He had even made a name for himself in the Earth Dominion. To him, the stronger the 5 Elite Zombie grows, the safer they will be. Han Shuo was even more astonished to learn that even the Overgod of Earth wished to meet Earth Elite Zombie. Han Shuo knew nothing about the disputes between Earth Elite Zombie and Varan, and he did not care. Even if it was Earth Elite Zombie that was in the wrong, Han Shuo will not let go of Varan for attacking his son. Siding with one's children regardless if they were at fault or not is a universal trait that every father would have. Han Shuo was no exception. "Just you wait. When my father is here, all of you will die," said Earth Elite Zombie arrogantly to the angered Varan. "Good, I want to see who your father is. If I can't catch you, I don't mind getting him instead," shouted Varan as he glared at Earth Elite Zombie in the distance. Varan knew that if he were to make any move, Earth Elite Zombie, whose lower body was still submerged underground, will immediately disappear underground. Varan was exasperated by the fact that he, a high god of Earth, could do nothing to a mid-god of Earth. Sometimes, he even wondered if Earth Elite Zombie had been deceiving him about his true strength all along, for it seemed unreasonable that a mere mid-god would have such an insanely profound understanding of the element of Earth. "Good, stay right there if you have the guts." Earth Elite Zombie fully exited the ground and continued to provoke Varan. Earth Elite Zombie could sense that Han Shuo will arrive in no time, and it emboldened him to be even more condescending. Although he was still naive in appearance to Varan, he looked like the most abdominal person on Elysium. "Stay, I will. No matter who comes to your rescue, you will not get away from us," replied Varan. While Earth Elite Zombie and Varan were shouting at each other, a bizarre radiance appeared from the horizon and streaked across the sky before abruptly halting beside Earth Elite Zombie. "Father, you're here. It's great to see you," cheered Earth Elite Zombie, and he smiled foolishly at Han Shuo. "Are you all right?" Han Shuo only became at ease after taking a couple of careful looks at Earth Elite Zombie and discovered that he was not injured. Right after that, he glared at Varan, bunched his brows, and asked, "So this is the guy?" "He is. He has been hunting me all the way from the Earth Dominion. He just won't let go. How annoying," said Earth Elite Zombie in an annoyed manner. "All I did was kill a few people in their city. Besides, it was they who offended me first. Those you killed were members of prestigious family clans. If I don't bring you back, I cannot answer myself to those family clans." Varan was enraged by Earth Elite Zombie's justification and immediately shouted in response, "There will be no need to answer anything. Since we have met, I'm not going to let you leave." Han Shuo stared at Varan with his cold eyes while asking Earth Elite Zombie, "Tell me, how do you want him dead?" Varan finally knew where Earth Elite Zombie learned to be so haughty and arrogant from his father, who was even more so. This guy of unknown origin was reading Varan's death sentence in a straight face, as though killing a high god was nothing but a piece of cake. Instead of getting angrier, Varan laughed, Ha ha ha, what a duo. One only knows how to hide, and another only knows how to bluff. Oi, I'm standing right here. Come and kill me if you can. Rose, kill them all. Han Shuo bunched his brows and instructed Rose, who had just caught up to Han Shuo. Rose, who had just arrived beside Han Shuo, stared puzzlingly at Earth Elite Zombie and asked, He's your son? Yes, Han Shuo nodded and asked, Why, is there a problem? Rose shook her head and replied, No, it's just that I find it rather puzzling. Back then at the Demon Mountain, Spider Goddess Rose had met Earth Elite Zombie and Metal Elite Zombie. It never crossed her mind that the two Elite Zombie would have such a close relationship with Han Shuo. Father, who is she? Asked Earth Elite Zombie. Sense her aura carefully, replied Han Shuo in a faint smile. Although Earth Elite Zombie's sensing ability wasn't as absurdly good as that of Han Shuo, it was much better than most people on Elysium. Earth Elite Zombie stared at Rose for a moment, and he suddenly jolted. He cried, That thing in Demon Mountain. Humph, Rose glared at Earth Elite Zombie. She was still a little angry. I remember you, you petty thief. Yes, it's me that stole your things. What are you gonna do? Earth Elite Zombie may appear simple-minded on the outside, but he had learned plenty after surviving in the brutal world for so many years. As soon as he saw Han Shuo giving Rose command, he knew that Rose currently have some kind of a relationship with Han Shuo, and therefore he was not afraid of Rose. Goddamn it, they think us invisible. One of Varan's divine guards could no longer hold his anger, and he loudly cursed. Varan was infuriated. He finally could no longer hold back his anger and charged at Han Shuo in a loud roar. All right, that's enough, shouted Han Shuo softly. He turned to Rose and said, That can't wait to die. Go and fulfill their death wish. Rose shot yet another glare at Earth Elite Zombie before she finally charged at Varan. Absolute darkness abruptly shrouded the region, consuming every photon. Rose managed to kill several mid-god divine guards in an instant. Rose was a mid-stage high god, while Varan was just an early-stage high god. Although the two were just one level apart, it was nonetheless an enormous gap in strength. To make it worse for Varan, Rose had taken the upper hand of making the first strike, shrouding the region with her darkness domain of divinity. Varan had not just caught a Tartar, but he had also sealed his destiny to meet death. Father, how did she end up with you? Asked Earth Elite Zombie. He was very curious about their relationship after seeing how obedient Rose was. After you fellas left, I have managed to improve in strength. I took a trip to the Demon Mountain, intending to take revenge for you and Metal Elite Zombie. After I defeated her, she pleaded to be my slave. I needed helpers, so I took her in. Han Shuo was a little embarrassed when talking about the matter. He was worried that Earth Elite Zombie would be unhappy that he did not kill Rose. I see. Back then she was so aggressive and dead, sworn on killing us, and yet she ends up serving us. Ha, replied Earth Elite Zombie contently. He did not seem to be unhappy about Han Shuo not killing Rose. After having been together with Han Shuo for such a long time, Rose had learned a few tricks from Han Shuo. Instead of attacking Varan right from the start, Rose attacked his mid-god, subordinated, and tricked Varan, who was disoriented in her darkness divinity domain, into killing his own divine guards. The mid-god stood no chance against Rose. All those mid-god divine guards who had been pursuing Earth Elite Zombie from the Earth Dominion all the way to the Space Dominion were killed by Rose in no time. It was after they were dead that Rose put all her focus on attacking Varan. Varan could only barely defend himself against Rose's attacks and couldn't make any counterattacks. He felt himself getting weaker and weaker. Varan had assumed Han Shuo as a mid-god right from the start. As no one could sense Han Shuo's strength in demonic arts, and Han Shuo had been revealing the aura of his avatar of death, Varan thought that Han Shuo was just an average mid-god. Naturally, a mid-god was no menace in Varan's eyes. He did not even take Rose as a threat. Although Varan could not determine Rose's strength, he saw Han Shuo giving Rose an order. He thought that an expert under the command of a mid-god wouldn't be any stronger. It was only when Rose deployed her high god domain of divinity that Varan realized just how terribly mistaken he was. If he knew that Rose had mid-stage high god strength, he wouldn't have stayed but make a run for it. Varan could not feel more regretful. He strained himself in defending against Rose's merciless attacks. It was only a matter of time before he would exhaust all his energy and be defeated. Just when Varan thought that all hope was lost, an aged voice sounded from a distance. "Lady, gentlemen, please stop." An old man with long, white hair, clutching to a staff made of a dried, yellowish wood, ripped apart spacetime and appeared out of nowhere. With a wave of his hand, Rose and Varan were frozen in combat as though someone had paused the flow of time. Chapter 811, GDK 811. If I say you'll die, you'll die. GDK 811. If I say you'll die, you'll die. The bizarre binding energy emitted from the yellowish staff held by that old man had paused time for Varan and Rose. The bizarre energy had also affected Han Shuo. It took 2 seconds before Han Shuo came to his senses, and he saw that Rose and Varan, who were in the middle of a fight, had abruptly been separated. Rose's domain of divinity had also disappeared. Han Shuo immediately realized that he had also been affected by the time pause. He was astonished. He turned to look at the old man gravely and shouted, "Identify yourself." It took Rose and Varan a few more seconds before they too realized what had just happened. Rose would have been able to kill Varan in just another moment if she was not interrupted. She was rather annoyed that she was inexplicably frozen in time for a few seconds, and that she was prevented from killing her prey. On the polar opposite to Rose, Varan, whose life was saved just inches from death, was overjoyed. He exhaled a sigh of relief, turned to the old man wielding the staff, and hastily said, "Thank you, Lord Baum." The old man named Baum kept a calm and unperturbed face. He nodded his head slightly and indifferently said, "Varan, perhaps it's time for you to return. I don't think you are capable of arresting that person called Han Tu anymore." Varan forced a smile and replied, "I understand. I shall return and inform my superior of matter. Lord Baum, sorry for the trouble." "It's okay," replied Baum. "Han Tu and you, youngster, this is not over yet. Akaji City will not stop pursuing the matter. Just you wait." Varan tried to appear tough, although his heart was still trembling in fear. "And you, woman, what is your name? I will remember you." Rose couldn't be bothered to answer him. She remained silent as she stood beside Han Shuo. "You think you can get away?" Han Shuo coldly groaned and shouted, "If I say I want you dead, then you'll die. Nothing will stop me." Upon finishing those words, Han Shuo started marching towards Varan step by step. His eyes, however, were fixed on that old man called Baum. Baum bunched his brows as though he was unhappy about Han Shuo's disrespectful attitude. He looked at Han Shuo, and in a soft but firm voice, he said, "I'm the city lord of Ethereal City. We do not allow fighting in this city. Gentlemen, no matter who you may be, you should respect and abide by the rules of this city while you are in the city. Why didn't you show up when Varan and his men tried to kill Han Tu just then, but abruptly came to interrupt when Varan is about to die? If your duty is to prevent fights, then you don't seem to be doing your job well," sneered Han Shuo. Baum possessed late-stage, high-god strength and cultivated in the mysterious Space Edict. In normal circumstances, Han Shuo wouldn't be willing to make such an enemy. However, based on observations, Han Shuo could tell that Baum and Varan were acquainted. It seemed to Han Shuo that Baum was trying to protect Varan. Han Shuo was not afraid of offending Baum for Earth Elite Zombie. Although Baum could freeze time, he cannot do so for an extended period. Han Shuo was previously affected by the time freeze because he wasn't expecting it. Han Shuo believed that by taking certain precautions and defensive measures, it wouldn't be easy for Baum to time freeze him again. Fights between mid-gods happens on every corner of Ethereal City. I can't possibly stop every one of those fights. However, I can detect battles between high gods through the sensor towers deployed around the city, explained Baum calmly, while his eyes locked tight on Han Shuo. Baum could sense that this person was rather unusual. The demeanor he carried shouldn't be found on an ordinary mid-god. A person with the guts to challenge the city lord's authority would either be a fool or a formidable expert possessing extraordinary strength. Obviously, Han Shuo belonged in the latter group. Bull fucking shit. Han Shuo scoffed disdainfully at Baum's explanation. He let out a slight groan, and his footsteps towards Baum and Varan abruptly accelerated. Cauldron Spirit's energy was injected into his body in an instant. Omen Invincible Body was also deployed. Baum's heart jolted and he thought, "Oh crap." Slash-eye, he brandished the yellow wooden staff in his hand, and a pulse of miraculous energy emanated from the staff. The energy had altered the law of spacetime. A boundary of space-adictal energy enveloped Han Shuo. A split second later, Han Shuo found himself unable to move as though space had frozen. Following that, a wave of energy was traveling towards his consciousness, trying to freeze his thought. Han Shuo's consciousness suddenly split up into hundreds of thousands of strands and swam around his brain. They formed a vortex that devoured the wave of energy targeting his consciousness. Before that bizarre energy wave could form any resistance, it was shattered by the continuous attacks from Han Shuo's whirling consciousness. After the threat to his consciousness was neutralized, Han Shuo immediately sensed that every cell in his body seemed to be frozen in ice. He could also sense that his body was frozen in midair, as though he had been turned into a living statue. It was a very strange feeling, and Han Shuo did not like it. The energy of the space edict boundary filled every inch of the region, but Han Shuo's consciousness managed to avoid being frozen. Immediately, he activated every cell in his body. Every one of them would explode, disintegrate, reassemble, and repeat. The Omen invincible body was as though an ignited gunpowder. An astonishing amount of defensive energy erupted. Soft but clear cracking noises sounded from all over Han Shuo's body and stopped with a final loud "I crack." Han Shuo managed to regain full mobility. In the next instance, Han Shuo sensed that the spacetime boundary had shattered like glass. Fissures visible to the naked eye appeared in the space around him before they rapidly fused and disappeared. It was as though nothing had happened, and Han Shuo was still marching towards Baum and Varan in a callous face. Rose, Earth Elite Zombie, and Varan shivered after the loud cracking sound. They knew that something must have happened between Han Shuo and Baum. However, as they were affected by the space energy barrier, they weren't sure of the details. They cast bewildered gazes at Han Shuo and Baum. Varan, who originally planned on leaving immediately, was elated when he saw Han Shuo ignored Baum's advice. Instead of hastily running away from the danger zone, he stayed and watched, hoping that a calamity will befall Han Shuo and Rose. Varan knew just how powerful the City Lord of Ethereal City was. Although Baum usually doesn't interfere in anybody's business, his strength was unfathomably great. Varan wouldn't dare hunt Earth Elite Zombie in Ethereal City without first seeking Baum's approval and presenting his City Lord's token to Baum. When Varan saw that Han Shuo dared challenge the might of the City Lord, and when he saw that Baum seemed annoyed, he again saw a glimmer of hope in capturing Earth Elite Zombie. After destroying the space energy boundary, Han Shuo continued marching towards Baum step by step. He deliberately released the intimidating aura of the Cauldron Spirit. While staring fixedly at Baum, he shouted, "This is between me and Varan. You have nothing to do with this. Are you sure you want to stop me?" Baum seemed troubled and indecisive, for he knew that a person who could break free from his space edict boundary in just 3 seconds definitely had the strength to fight him. Baum knew that if he were to fight Han Shuo, it would most likely end badly. He might even suffer injuries. A cultivator of space edict usually wouldn't perish in a fight as long as they stayed vigilant. To them, it was bad enough of an outcome to suffer injuries. Although Baum was wary of Han Shuo's power, he wasn't concerned about losing his life, as Han Shuo did not show overwhelmingly superior strength. However, for an expert at the realm he was, suffering injuries would be a very painful thing. As Han Shuo got closer and closer, Baum started to seriously reconsider if he should fight Han Shuo for Varan. Varan seemed to have noticed Baum's hesitation and hastily advised, "Lord Baum, this is the Ethereal City, your city. As the City Lord, you should be tough against an outsider so bold and reckless to challenge your authority." Varan did not know what was the relationship between his City Lord and Baum, but from Baum's reaction, it became clear to him that they weren't all that close.